recorded.
Tools and Treasures of Ancient Greece by Matt Doden. Chapter 1, The Ancient Greeks. More than 2,500 years ago, ancient Greece was becoming a great civilization. The ancient Greeks had gifted artists, deadly warriors, and great thinkers. They also had an unusual government. It was the world's first democracy. In a democracy, free people get to vote on their leaders and many of their laws. Ancient Greece changed the world. It shaped many cultures that followed it. The Greeks left behind all sorts of useful tools and amazing treasures. Rugged land. Ancient Greece was in southeastern Europe. It sat on the tip of the Balkan Peninsula. This part of Europe sticks out into the Mediterranean Sea. The land is rough and covered with mountains. Greece was made up of many city-states. Each city-state had its own leaders and laws. Two of the largest city-states were Athens and Sparta. Early in Greek history, people rarely visited other city-states. Traveling on foot or horseback was hard, but Greece was surrounded on three sides by water. Many Greeks were expert sailors and traveled by sea. Around 500 BCE, Persia tried to take over Greece. The city-states joined together to defend themselves. They held back the Persian army. The city-states also formed a common culture. That's how the golden age of ancient Greece began. Chapter 2, Daily Life. Free Greek men spent most of their time in public. They gathered to talk about art and science. They voted on laws. They threw parties and went to the theater. Most Greek women weren't allowed to join these activities. They stayed home, they did housework, and raised children. Some couldn't even go outside. But women in Sparta had more rights. They studied the arts, they played sports, they even helped the men run Sparta's government. Some men and women were slaves. They worked in the homes of free Greeks. They cooked, made clothes, and did other chores. Slaves had little control over their lives. They had to do whatever their owners told them, and slaves got no pay. Some Greeks treated their slaves very harshly. Young warriors in Sparta killed slaves as part of their training. Work. Many ancient Greeks were farmers. They grew wheat, barley, olives, figs, grapes, and more. Farmers also raised animals such as goats, sheep, pigs, and chickens. Some Greeks were fishers. Others were builders, artists, or teachers. A few freemen in each city-state were in charge of the government. Other men chose them to make most of the laws. War was common, so most men spent at least some time training as soldiers. All free Spartan men were full-time soldiers. They started training at the age of 7. Soldiers carried long spears and shields. The Greeks also used bows and arrows, short swords, and javelins. Communication. The language of ancient Greece was a lot like the modern Greek language. The Greek alphabet has 24 letters from alpha to omega. Modern Greeks still use this alphabet. Every other European alphabet is based on it. The Greeks wrote on tablets made of wood or leather. The tablets were covered with wax. Greeks used a writing tool called a stylus to form the letters. The Greeks used writings in many ways. They kept track of harvests, they wrote stories about heroes and gods, and they even sent letters to one another. Religion. The Greeks believed gods controlled earth. The gods had great powers, but they were also a lot like people. They usually looked human, they fought, fell in love, and played tricks. The Greeks wanted to keep their gods happy. They hoped the gods would protect them from disease, bad weather, and war. So the Greeks built temples to honor the gods. People prayed there. They also offered food and animals as sacrifices. The most famous ancient Greek temple is the Parthenon in Athens. The culture of ancient Greece. No ancient culture had a bigger impact on the modern world than ancient Greece. Its art and architecture still affect modern styles. Its thinkers changed the way people saw the world, and its government is a model for modern democracies. Art. Ancient Greek valued many art forms. Artists painted on walls, wood panels, and pottery. Sculptors used metal tools to carve images into stone or metal. One of the greatest Greek sculptures was a statue of the god Zeus. It was 42 feet tall. That's about as tall as a four-story building. The Greeks loved plays. Actors performed in outdoor theaters. The Greeks invented the main types of plays that are still common today. Tragedies had sad endings, comedies ended happily. Music was another common art form. It was played at important events, but people also played it for fun. Greek musicians had many instruments. The panpipe was a kind of flute. A lyre was a stringed instrument. The Greeks even had trumpets. Architecture. Most buildings in ancient Greece were made of bricks formed from sun-baked mud, but temples were made of stone. Stone is a strong material. It lasts a long time. So some ancient Greek temples are still standing. These buildings had a simple, graceful style. Tall columns held up to the roofs. This design later became popular all around Europe. The Greeks also built huge outdoor theaters. Most theaters stood on a slope. The stage was at the bottom rows of seats lined the slope. The design made it easy for everyone to see the stage. How were the ancient Greek theaters like modern day movie theaters? Sports. The ancient Greeks loved sports. Young men wrestled, boxed, ran races, and competed in the long jump. They threw the javelin and the discus. The Greeks even invented a 26-mile foot race called a marathon. The Greeks held the first Olympic Games in 776 BCE. These games were very different from the modern Olympics. Only free Greek men could compete. The winners' prizes were wreaths made from olive branches. Greek folklore, the flight of Icarus. The ancient Greeks had many myths. Each myth explained a belief or taught a lesson. One tale tells of a boy named Icarus who ignored an important warning. Icarus was the son of Daedalus, a master craftsman. Daedalus and Icarus were prisoners on the island of Crete, but Daedalus came up with a plan to escape. He used feathers and wax to build 2 pairs of wings. He and Icarus strapped the wings to their backs so they could fly away. "Follow me," Daedalus told Icarus. "Don't fly too high." Icarus and his father took off into the sky. Icarus was thrilled that he could fly. He grew careless and kept flying higher. It grew hotter and hotter as he flew closer to the sun. Soon, the heat melted the wax on his wings. The wings fell apart. Icarus dropped to his death in the sea below. Chapter 4: The Fall of Ancient Greece. Greece was strongest when its city-states worked together against a common enemy. But Greece and Persia made peace in 449 BCE. Then the Greek city-states fought among themselves. Athens and Sparta fought each other in the Peloponnesian War. It lasted 26 years. Sparta finally won, but the long struggle weakened all of Greece. The Spartans didn't hold power for long. King Philip II of Macedon took over during the 350s BCE. His son Alexander replaced him in 336 BCE. Alexander was a great military leader. His armies conquered Persia, Egypt, India, and many other lands. He controlled the biggest empire in the world. Greece had never been stronger. Alexander died in 323 BCE. His generals all wanted to rule in his place, so they fought one another for power. The empire was torn apart. The golden age of Greece was over. Enter the Romans. The weakened city-states survived for almost 200 more years. But by 146 BCE, Rome had conquered Greece. Greece became part of the Roman Empire. Greek cultures didn't die out, though. The Romans copied Greek styles of art and building. They used Greek musical instruments. Their religion was based on Greek beliefs. Their government borrowed ideas from Greek democracy. The Romans spread these ideas all around Europe. Greece today. Descendants of the ancient Greeks still live in present day Greece. The nation is home to about 11 million people. Athens is its capital. The city has changed a lot since the Golden Age, but many treasures of ancient Greece remain, from sculptures to writing to huge temples. They remind modern Greeks of the rich culture that thrived there thousands of years ago.